The last hour before midnight, 8th and Cross. It's had exactly 47 minutes before his 43rd birthday when everything went wrong. The parking garage beneath Crosstech Industries sat 5 levels underground, concrete tomb where fluorescent lights buzzed like dying insects. His footsteps echoed against the oil-stained floor as he walked toward his Tesla, the only vehicle left in the executive section at this ungodly hour. The January cold had seeped through the building's ventilation system, turning his breath into visible puffs of white. Nathan pulled his coat tighter, feeling the weight of another 18-hour workday pressing against his shoulders. His phone buzzed with the 100th message of the evening. Another crisis. Another fire to extinguish. Another reason why he lived alone in a penthouse that felt more like a museum than a home. He had built Crosstech from nothing into a $2 billion empire that revolutionized emergency response technology across North America. Every ambulance, every fire truck, every police dispatch in 30 states ran on his software. The media called him a genius. His board called him unstoppable. But tonight, alone in this garage, he just felt tired. The attack came without warning. A figure emerged from behind a concrete pillar, moving with practiced silence. Nathan's instincts flared too late. Something hard cracked against the side of his head, sending stars exploding across his vision. He stumbled sideways, trying to catch himself. But a second blow hammered into his ribs. Pain erupted, like lightning through his chest. He hit the ground hard, the impact knocking the air from his lungs. Cold cement pressed against his cheek. His vision swam. Somewhere above him, footsteps retreated into the shadows, fast and purposeful. Nathan tried to push himself up, but his arms buckled. Something warm and wet spread across his shirt. When he pressed his hand against his side, his fingers came away dark and slick. Blood. Too much blood. His mind raced through the possibilities. A robbery. Corporate espionage. Someone from the protest groups that had been threatening him for months. It did not matter now. What mattered was the spreading warmth beneath his palm, and the way each breath felt shallower than the last. He fumbled for his phone, but it had skittered somewhere out of reach during the fall. The emergency call button on the garage wall might as well have been a mile away. His security team would not check the executive level for another hour. The cameras had been mysteriously offline all evening, something he had planned to investigate tomorrow if he lived that long. Nathan closed his eyes, feeling the cold seeping deeper into his bones. His mother's face flickered through his mind. Her voice from 20 years ago telling him to be careful, to not work so hard, to remember that success meant nothing if you died alone. He had not listened then. He wished he could tell her she was right. The sound of footsteps made him open his eyes. Different footsteps this time, lighter, hurried but not running. A figure rounded the corner carrying a yellow maintenance cart. Wearing navy coveralls and a ponytail pulled back tight, the woman stopped dead when she saw him. For a heartbeat, Nathan thought she might run. People always ran from blood. Instead, she dropped to her knees beside him, her face draining of color as she took in the wound. "Oh God," she whispered. "What happened?" Nathan tried to speak, but only a ragged gasp came out. The woman's hands moved to his side, pressing against the wound. The pressure sent fresh agony shooting through him. "Please," he managed, his voice barely audible. "Just make it fast." He expected panic. He expected her to scream for help or run to find security. What he did not expect was for her to yank off her coveralls with swift, practiced movements, revealing a gray thermal shirt underneath. "Not tonight," she said, her voice suddenly steady and commanding. "You stay with me," before he could process what was happening. She gripped the hem of her thermal shirt and pulled it over her head in one fluid motion. Underneath, she wore only a thin white tank top. But Nathan barely noticed that. What he noticed were the scars. A massive burn mark stretched diagonally across her left shoulder and upper chest. The skin puckered and pale like melted wax. Just below it, partially obscured by the scarring, was a tattoo. Not decorative. Clinical. A string of numbers and letters he recognized instantly from his military contracts. TC9. Trauma Corps' designation for elite battlefield medics, lower still. Near her collarbone was another marking. faded and distorted by the burn, but unmistakable to anyone who had seen casualty reports from the hospital bombing 3 years ago. The same bombing that killed 17 first responders and made national headlines for a week before the media moved on to the next tragedy. She folded the thermal shirt quickly and pressed it hard against his wound. Nathan groaned, but she did not ease up. "Look at me," she ordered. "Do not close your eyes. You close your eyes, you die. Understand?" Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice carried the authority of someone who had done this before. Many times before, in places much worse than a parking garage, Nathan forced his gaze to focus on her face. Dark eyes, sharp cheekbones, a small scar cutting through her left eyebrow. She looked familiar somehow, like someone he had seen in passing but never really noticed. "Who are you?" He whispered. "Irrelevant right now." She pressed harder and he gasped. "Stay awake. Tell me your name." "Nathan. Nathan Cross." "Okay, Nathan. I'm Riley and you're going to live because I'm not losing anyone else tonight." The way she said it, fierce and almost angry, told him everything. She had lost someone recently, badly, and she was taking it personally. That death had come for him. Riley glanced around the garage, her jaw tight. "Your phone. Where is it?" "I don't know." "Dropped it." She cursed under her breath and reached into her coveralls pocket, pulling out an old flip phone. She dialed with one hand while keeping pressure on his wound with the other. "Emergency services. Crosstech Industries. Sublevel 5 parking. Man down. Stab wound to the abdomen. Massive blood loss. Send everyone." She snapped the phone shut and looked back at Nathan. "They're coming. You hear me? They're coming." Nathan's vision started to tunnel. The edges of the world turned gray and soft. "No." Riley's hand moved to his face, her palm cold against his cheek. "You don't get to check out. Not after I just ruined my favorite shirt for you." Despite the pain, despite the fear, Nathan felt the corner of his mouth twitch. "Sorry about your shirt, should be. It was expensive." She shifted her position, putting more weight on the wound. "Tell me something. Anything. Keep talking." "Why?" The word came out barely audible, because if you talk, you're breathing. If you're breathing, you're alive. Her eyes locked onto his with an intensity that felt like an anchor. "So talk." "I was supposed to turn 43 at midnight," he said weakly. "Then you better make it to midnight." Riley's jaw set. "Because I'm not explaining to your family why you died on my watch. No family left." Nathan admitted. Something flickered across her. Face, grief, recognition, understanding. "I guess that makes 2 of us," she said quietly. The distant wail of sirens began to filter down from the upper levels. Riley's shoulders sagged slightly with relief. But she did not ease the pressure on his wound. Nathan's eyes drifted toward a broken side mirror on the ground nearby, its fractured surface reflecting them both. In the shattered glass, he saw himself pale and fading. And beside him, a woman with haunted eyes who looked like she was holding together more than just his wound. She was holding together something inside herself, something that had broken long before tonight. "Riley," he whispered, "save your strength. Thank you." Her hands tightened on the makeshift bandage. "Don't thank me yet. You're not out of this." But as the sirens grew louder and the darkness crept closer, Nathan realized something through the haze of pain and fear. For the first time in years, someone had seen him. Not Nathan Cross, the billionaire. Not Nathan Cross, the CEO. Just Nathan. A man bleeding out in a parking garage who did not want to die alone, and Riley Bennett. Whoever she really was beneath the janitor coveralls and the hidden scars, had refused to let that happen. The last thing Nathan saw before unconsciousness claimed him was her face, set with determination and something that looked almost like desperation. As if saving him meant more than just keeping a stranger alive. As if saving him meant saving herself. The search begins. Nathan woke 3 days later in a private hospital suite that smelled of antiseptic and fresh flowers. Sunlight streamed through flatuzeline windows, painting golden squares across the white bedsheets. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then the pain in his ribs reminded him with sharp clarity. The attack. The garage. The blood dot. Riley, he sat up too quickly, ignoring the protest from his healing wound. A nurse rushed in, scolding him about bed rest and stitches. Behind her came Kevin Daniels, his head of security, looking like he had not slept in 72 hours. "Where is she?" Nathan asked immediately. Kevin frowned. "Sir, you should rest." "The doctors said, 'The woman who saved me, Riley. Where is she?'" Kevin exchanged a glance with the nurse. "We've been trying to locate her. The problem is, we have no record of anyone named Riley working maintenance that night." Nathan's chest tightened. "That's impossible. She was there. She called the ambulance. She kept me alive. I believe you, sir. But the cameras were down, and when we pulled employee records for that shift, no one matching her description was scheduled. We checked janitors, maintenance, custodial staff. Nothing." She had a flip phone. "Traced the call. It came from a prepaid burner. Untraceable." Nathan leaned back against the pillows, frustration burning through him. She had vanished like smoke, like she had never existed at all, except she had. He remembered her hands, her voice, her eyes, the scars, the medical tattoo. "Pull records from 3 years ago," Nathan said slowly. "The hospital bombing downtown. Cross-reference with trauma medics, emergency responders. Look for someone named Riley with TC9 designation." Kevin's eyebrows rose. "Sir, that's classified military medical data." "I don't care. Find a way." It took Kevin for days and several questionable legal maneuvers. But he finally dropped a thin folder on Nathan's desk the morning Nathan returned to work against medical advice.
"Riley Bennett,"
Kevin said. Age 34. Former trauma surgeon, decorated combat medic before that. She was at the hospital bombing 3 years ago. Lost her surgical partner, someone named Dr. Christopher Lane. They were engaged. Nathan opened the folder, and his breath caught. The photo showed a younger Riley wearing surgical scrubs, smiling at the camera with an arm around a sandy-haired man. Her eyes looked completely different. Alive. Hopeful. Nothing like the haunted woman who had saved him. "What happened after the bombing?" Nathan asked quietly. "She quit medicine entirely. Stopped showing up to therapy appointments. Disappeared for 8 months. Then she resurfaces, working under their table jobs. Cash only. No permanent address, but she's in the city, somewhere. We found a possible lead. A woman matching her description was seen at Mercy General Hospital working night custodial. Started 2 months ago." Nate stood immediately, grabbing his coat. "Sir, you really should rest. I've rested enough." The confrontation Mercy General's basement level smelled like industrial cleaner and old concrete. Nathan found her near the boiler room, mopping the hallway with mechanical precision. She wore baggy coveralls and a baseball cap pulled low, but he recognized her instantly. Riley. She froze mid-motion. For 3 seconds, she stood perfectly still. Then she dropped the mop and ran. Nathan chased her through the maze of basement corridors, his healing ribs screaming in protest. She was fast, but he was desperate. She shoved through a storage room door, and he caught it before it could close. "Wait, please." Riley spun around, backing against a shelf of cleaning supplies. "You shouldn't be here. You saved my life. That's all it was." "One moment. It's done. Why did you disappear?" Her jaw clenched. "Because I don't want to be found." Nathan stepped closer, careful not to corner her. "I know about Christopher. I know about the bombing. I know you were a surgeon." Pain flashed across her face, raw and immediate. Don't. What? Don't dig into my past. Don't try to fix me. Don't turn me into some project. That's not what I'm doing." "Then what are you doing, Nathan?" Her voice cracked. "Why are you here?" "You're alive. I did what I had to do. Now, leave me alone. I can't." "Why not?" "Because I see you," he wanted to say. "Because you looked at me like I was human, not a symbol. Because when you held that wound closed, it felt like you were holding something in me together that had nothing to do with blood. Instead," he said, "because I need to understand why someone with your skills is hiding in a basement mopping floors." "You want to understand? Fine, I'll tell you. I was the best trauma surgeon at County Memorial. The absolute best. People lived because of me. And then one day, the man I loved died in my arms while I did everything right, and it still wasn't enough. The building collapsed. The ceiling came down. I covered him with my own body, and he still died. Her voice dropped to a whisper. So I quit. Because if I can do everything right and people still die, then what's the point? What's the point of any of it? Nathan took another step forward. The point is that you saved me. You saved me when you could have walked away. That was a mistake. Was it? Yes. Tears glimmered in her eyes. Because now you're here, dragging everything back up, making me remember what it felt like to care whether someone lived or died. And I can't do that again. I can't lose someone again. Riley, go home, Nathan. Go back to your billion-dollar company and your fancy life. Forget about the janitor who helped you. Forget about me. She pushed past him and walked out of the storage room without looking back. Nathan stood alone among the mops and bottles, his chest aching with something that had nothing to do with his injury. He had come here for answers, but he left with only more questions. And the haunting certainty that Riley Bennett was drowning. No one had bothered to throw her a lifeline until now. The unlikely neighbor Nathan did not give up. He could not. Over the next 2 weeks, he showed up at Mercy General every night. Not confronting her, just there, visible, persistent. Sometimes he sat in the waiting room reading reports. Sometimes he walked past her work area without saying a word. He wanted her to know she was not invisible. Anymore, Riley ignored him with practiced determination. But then Nathan met Mrs. Grace Porter, the 78-year-old. Woman lived in the apartment next to Riley's in a crumbling building on the south side. Nathan discovered this by following Riley home one night, staying far enough back that she would not notice. He felt like a stalker, and he hated it. But desperation made people do questionable things. He knocked on Mrs. Porter's door instead of Riley's. The elderly woman answered with a shot. "I'm not interested in Jesus," she announced. Nathan raised his hand slowly. "I'm Nathan Cross. I'm a friend of Riley's." Mrs. Porter lowered the shotgun slightly. "Riley doesn't have friends. I'm trying to change that." She studied him with sharp eyes that had seen too much of life to be easily fooled. "You're the one she saved? How did you know?" "Because that girl came home 3 weeks ago with blood on her hands she couldn't wash off. Cried in my kitchen for an hour. The first time I've seen her cry in 2 years." Mrs. Porter stepped back, opening the door wider. "You better come in." Her apartment smelled like lavender and old books. They sat at a small kitchen table, covered with a crocheted tablecloth. "Riley won't talk to me," Nathan admitted. "But I need to help her." "Why?" "Because she saved my life, and I think saving mine broke something inside her." Mrs. Porter nodded slowly. "That girl has been broken for a long time. She thinks if she doesn't care about anyone, she can't lose anyone. She thinks being invisible keeps her safe. How do I reach her?" "You don't reach people like Riley by pushing. You reach them by being present, by showing them they matter, by refusing to give up even when they push you away." Mrs. Porter poured him tea. "She goes to the Memorial Garden every Saturday morning. The one near County Memorial. She sits by Christopher's bench, never misses a week." "Thank you," Nathan said quietly. "But don't thank me yet. That girl's got walls higher than your skyscrapers. Breaking through them might hurt both of you." But Nathan was already decided. Pain was nothing new. Regret was worse. The Memorial Garden Saturday morning arrived, cold and gray. Nathan found Riley sitting on a wooden bench, surrounded by bare trees and frozen flower beds. She wore a heavy coat and held a cup of coffee that had probably gone cold an hour ago. He sat down beside her without asking permission. Riley stiffened, but did not leave. His name was Christopher Lane, Nathan said softly, reading the plaque on the bench. "Beloved son, brother, healer, you looked him up." I needed to understand. Riley stared straight ahead. Christopher believed everyone deserved to be saved. Even when I told him some cases were hopeless, he fought anyway. He said giving up was worse than losing. "He sounds like someone worth loving." He was. Her voice cracked, and then he was gone. One moment we were planning our wedding. The next moment, the building was collapsing, and I was screaming his name. And he couldn't hear me anymore. Nathan waited, giving her space to continue. I thought, if I stopped caring, it wouldn't hurt anymore, Riley whispered. I thought if I made myself small and invisible, life couldn't take anything else from me. But then you showed up bleeding in that garage and I couldn't walk away. My hands moved before my brain caught up. And suddenly I was right back in that moment, trying to save someone I couldn't afford to lose. But I lived, Nathan said gently. This time, Riley finally looked at him, her eyes red-rimmed. What about next time? What happens when you get hurt again, or sick, or something goes wrong and I can't fix it? What happens when I have to watch another person I care about die? The confession hung in the air between them. I care about you. She had not meant to say it, but she had. Nathan reached out slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, and took her hand. Then we'll face it together. You won't be alone. You don't understand, I do. His grip tightened. I understand being afraid. I understand building walls. I've spent 10 years running from anything that felt real because real means vulnerable. But Riley, I'm tired of running. Aren't you? She looked down at their joined hands and something in her expression cracked open. I'm so tired, she whispered. I'm so tired of being scared all the time. Well then stop running. Stop hiding. Come back to the world. I don't know if I can. I already did. The moment you saved me, you came back. You just haven't admitted it yet. Riley closed her eyes, tears finally spilling over. Nathan pulled her against him, and she collapsed into his chest, sobbing in a way that sounded like years of grief. Pouring out all at once, he held her in that frozen garden, while strangers walked past, and the wind cut through their coats. He held her until the tears slowed and her breathing steadied. He held her because no one else had in 3 years. When she finally pulled back, her face was blotchy and her eyes were swollen, but something had shifted. Something had broken open and let the light in. There's a medical gala next week, Nathan said quietly. Crosstech is sponsoring. Come with me. Riley shook her head. I can't. Those people, that world, it's not me anymore. It's exactly you. You're a healer, Riley. You always were. The question is whether you're ready to stop punishing yourself for being human. She did not answer, but she did not say no. And for Nathan, that was enough. The return Riley had not worn a dress in 3 years. Standing in front of her apartment mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. The simple black gown Mrs. Porter had helped her find at a thrift store fit perfectly. But Riley felt like she was wearing a costume. Pretending to be someone she used to be, her hands trembled as she tried to clasp the necklace Christopher had given her for their last anniversary. She had not taken it out of the drawer since the funeral. The silver pendant felt heavy against her throat. Like an anchor to a past she was not sure she was ready to revisit. You look beautiful. Baby, Mrs. Porter said from the doorway. Her eyes misty. I look terrified. Sometimes they're the same thing. Mrs. Porter adjusted Riley's hair gently. That man is waiting downstairs. He hasn't stopped smiling since he picked up that tuxedo yesterday. Riley's stomach fluttered. She had agreed to this in a moment of weakness in the memorial garden. Now, facing the reality of walking into a room full of doctors, surgeons, and medical professionals she used to work alongside. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she had run for 3 years. Maybe it was time to stop. Nathan waited in the lobby wearing a perfectly tailored tuxedo that made him look like he belonged in a magazine. When he saw her descending the stairs, his expression transformed into something that made Riley's breath catch. You're stunning, he said softly. Did you clean up okay yourself?
No.
The drive to the gala felt too short. Riley sat in Nathan's car watching the city lights blur past, her heart hammering against her ribs. Nathan must have sensed her panic because he reached over and took her hand. We can leave any time, he said. Just say the word. What if someone recognizes me? Then they recognize you. You didn't do anything wrong, Riley. You survived. That's not a crime, but it felt like one. Every day she woke up when Christopher did not felt like a betrayal. The ballroom, though. Westwood Hotel ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers and the polished confidence of Chicago's medical elite. Women in designer gowns laughed beside men in expensive suits. Champagne flowed. A string quartet played in the corner. It was everything Riley remembered hating about these events, even when she belonged here. Nathan kept his hand on the small of her back as they entered, a steady presence that kept her grounded. People noticed immediately. Whispers followed them across the marble floor. Nathan Cross had not attended a gala with a date in 5 years. The gossip would be vicious by morning. "Mr. Cross, wonderful to see you," a silver-haired surgeon said, extending his hand. "And who is this lovely companion?" Riley's throat tightened. She knew this man, Dr. Phillips. He had been head of trauma surgery when she worked at County Memorial. Would he recognize her? "This is Riley Bennett," Nathan said smoothly. "Riley, Dr. Phillips runs the cardiac unit at Westwood General." Dr. Phillips's eyes widened slightly. Recognition flickered. "Bennett. I knew a Dr. Bennett once. Brilliant trauma surgeon. Any relation?" Riley forced herself to meet his gaze. "That was me." The air between them turned awkward. Dr. Phillips clearly had not expected this answer. "I heard you left medicine." "Such a loss for the field." "Yes. Well." Riley's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Sometimes loss changes your perspective." Before Dr. Phillips could respond, a commotion erupted near the main entrance. Riley turned to see a man stumbling through the crowd, his face gray with pain. He clutched at his chest, gasping. "Heart attack," Riley said instantly. Nathan's head snapped toward her. "How do you know?" "Look at him. Classic symptoms." "Someone call an ambulance?" The people were frozen, staring in horror as the man collapsed onto the marble floor. A woman screamed. Someone yelled for a doctor, but no one moved. They all stood there in their expensive clothes, paralyzed by the sudden intrusion of death into their perfect evening. Riley felt her body lock up. Her training screamed at her to move, to help, but her trauma screamed louder. She could not do this. She had sworn she would never do this again. The man's lips were turning blue. "Riley." Nathan's voice cut through her panic. "He's dying." Her legs would not move. Her hands stayed frozen at her sides. Every muscle in her body rebelled against the idea of kneeling beside another dying person. But then she saw the man's hand reaching out weakly, grasping at nothing. The same way Christopher's hand had reached for her in the rubble. "Something inside," Riley snapped. She shoved through the crowd and dropped to her knees beside the man. Her hands moved automatically, checking for a pulse, finding none. She ripped open his shirt, buttons scattering across the floor. "Someone get me a defibrillator," she shouted. Now, Dr. Phillips unfroze. "I'll get it." Riley began compressions. 30 hard pushes against the sternum. 2 breaths. 30 more compressions. The rhythm came back like muscle memory, like her body had been waiting 3 years to remember what it was built to do. "Come on," she muttered. "Don't you dare die on me." The crowd pressed in around her. Phones came out, recording. She blocked them all out. There was only this man, this moment, this chance to save someone when she had failed before. Dr. Phillips returned with the defibrillator. Riley tore the pads from the case and placed them on the man's chest with practiced precision. "Clear," she announced. The shock jolted through the man's body. Nothing. She checked for a pulse. Still nothing. Again. Clear. This time the man gasped, his back arching as air rushed into his lungs. His eyes flew open, confused and terrified, but alive. Riley sat back on her heels, her hands shaking violently. The ballroom erupted in applause, but she barely heard it. Her vision tunneled. Her ears rang. She had just saved someone. For the first time in 3 years, she had saved someone. They lived. Nathan appeared beside her, helping her to her feet. Her legs felt like water. "I've got you," he whispered. "I've got you." But before they could move, a voice cut through the crowd. "Well, well, if it isn't the great Dr. Bennett, back from the dead." "Ah!" Riley's blood turned to ice. She knew that voice. Todd Hammond, head of security at County Memorial. The man who had made her life hell in the months after Christopher died, who blamed her for not saving everyone in the bombing, who spread rumors that she had frozen up when it mattered most. Todd pushed through the crowd, his smile cruel. "Couldn't stay away, could you?" Had to make yourself the hero again. Back off, Nathan warned. Todd ignored him. Did you tell your rich boyfriend how you let your fiancé die? How you were too slow, too scared, too useless to save the one person who actually mattered? The words hit Riley like physical blows. The crowd fell silent, everyone watching this public humiliation unfold. That's enough, Nathan said, his voice dropping to a dangerous quiet. Oh, I'm just getting started. See, everyone thinks she's some noble doctor who walked away from medicine, but the truth is, she was fired. She had a breakdown in the OR. Couldn't handle the pressure anymore. That's a lie, Dr. Phillips interjected. Dr. Bennett resigned voluntarily. Oh, Todd laughed. Whatever helps you sleep at night. But we all know the truth. She's a failure. A washed-up surgeon who couldn't save her own, Nathan moved faster than Riley had ever seen. One moment he was beside her, the next he had Todd by the collar, slamming him against the nearest pillar. You want to know what I know? Nathan's voice was cold steel. I know that woman saved my life when I was bleeding out in a parking garage. I know she saved that man's life just now, when everyone else stood around like statues. I know she has more courage in her little finger than you have in your entire body. He leaned closer, and his next words carried across the silent ballroom. And I know that if you ever speak to her like that again, I will personally make sure you never work in this city again. Are we clear? Todd's face turned red, then white. He nodded once, and Nathan released him. The crowd parted as Nathan took Riley's hand and led her toward the exit. But they only made it 3 steps before Riley stopped. She turned back to face Todd, who was straightening his jacket with shaking hands. You're right, she said clearly. I did have a breakdown. I did fall apart. Because the man I loved died in my arms, and I couldn't save him no matter what I did. And yes, it destroyed me. But you know what? I'm still here. I'm still breathing. I'm still fighting. And tonight, I saved someone's life. So you can call me a failure all you want, but at least I tried. At least I cared. What have you done besides tear people down? The silence in the ballroom was absolute. Riley turned back to Nathan. Let's go home. They walked out together while 300 people watched in stunned silence. The aftermath, they ended up on the roof of Nathan's building. The Chicago skyline spreading out beneath them like a carpet of lights. Riley still wore the black dress, but she had kicked off her heels. Her feet dangled over the edge of the rooftop garden while Nathan sat beside her with his jacket draped over her shoulders. Can't believe I said all that, Riley whispered. I can. You're braver than you think. I'm terrified. Brave and terrified aren't opposites. Nathan looked at her profile against the city lights. Riley, what you did tonight saved that man's life. But I think it might have saved you too. She turned to face him, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. I felt something tonight. When I was doing compressions, when his heart started beating again, I felt alive for the first time in 3 years. And that scares me more than anything. Why? Because now I have to decide if I'm going to stay invisible or step back into the light. And if I step into the light, I have to accept that I might lose someone again. I might fail again. I might watch someone I care about die, and I won't be able to stop it. Nathan reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. You might. That's the risk of caring about people. But Riley, the alternative is this half-life you've been living. Is that really better? I don't know, is it? No. His voice was certain. It's not. I know because I've been living my own version of it for years. Building walls, keeping everyone at arm's length, telling myself that success was enough. But it's not. You're not. This, he gestured between them, this is what matters. Connection, risk, being seen. Riley's breath hitched. What are you saying? I'm saying that you saved my life, and then you saved it again by showing me what it means to be brave enough to feel something. I'm saying that I'm falling in love with you, and I know it's fast and messy and probably crazy, but I don't care. Tears spilled down Riley's cheeks. Nathan, I'm broken. So am I. Maybe we can be broken together. She laughed through her tears, a sound that was half sob, half wonder. That's the worst romantic speech I've ever heard. Good thing I'm a tech CEO and not a poet. Riley leaned forward and kissed him. It was soft and tentative and tasted like salt and champagne, and 3 years of grief finally beginning to heal when they pulled apart. Nathan rested his forehead against hers. Come back to medicine. Not because of me, but because that's who you are. You're a healer, Riley. The world needs people like you. What if I fail? Then you fail. But at least you tried. At least you cared. Riley closed her eyes, feeling the weight of 3 years lifting off her shoulders 1 grain at a time. She thought about Christopher and what he would say if he were here. He would tell her to stop hiding. He would tell her to be brave. He would tell her that love, even love that ends, is worth the risk. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Okay, what? Okay, I'll try. I'll step back into the light. I'll stop running. She opened her eyes and looked at him. But you have to promise me something. Anything. Promise me that whatever happens, we face it together. No more walls. No more hiding. Just 2 broken people trying to be whole. Nathan kissed her forehead. I promise. They sat together on that rooftop while the city breathed below them and the stars watched from above. 2 damaged souls who had found each other in a parking garage, where one was dying and the other had sworn never to save anyone again. But sometimes the universe has different plans. Sometimes it takes your worst moment and turns it into the beginning of something beautiful. Sometimes the person you save ends up saving you right back. And sometimes, just sometimes, please make it fast becomes please make it last. Because this, right here, is worth fighting for. This is worth living for. This is worth loving for.